but I am Heather Kempskie. I'm the Director of Family Ministries here, and I've been working here almost 10 years now. But prior to that, we've had many chapters in our lives together, and one of them was when we were both pregnant with our second child. So our first kids are 5 months apart, and our seconds are 3 weeks apart. So we were absolutely no help to each other during pregnancy and early infanthood. Like, we were just surviving together. But one of the things that we really wanted for our children was to have great relationships with each other, sibling relationships. And one day, I believe we were up in Jake's nursery, covered in spit up, and just trying to get through another day when we realized, what if there's a way we can create some activities that the kids can do together, regardless of their age difference? We'll give them it'd give us something to do with them, and it would, distract them long enough that we could clean the spit up off our shirts.
We'll take a shot.
So we ended up writing a book called The Siblings Busy Book, which has, Lisa, want to display one? There it is.
It's been in Mr. World Desktop.
You can get it for up to 5 cents. At a yard sale. At a yard sale. 10 cents if we autograph it.
Yep.
But that was published in 2008, and we wrote it during the kids' nap times and during free time at night, and what ended up happening from that is that Lisa and I did a bunch of speaking opportunities on the sibling relationship. We talked about the importance of play and finding activities to do together to foster that relationship, but we ended up doing a ton more research on sibling rivalry and how birth order affects you, and we went on. We had so much fun.
We really did. We got to bring it back.
But we spoke at the Mall of America. We were on a mother's conference, and we had to go on a cruise. It was tough work.
It was work.
And and so we had a couple of great years doing that. And then as the kids get older, we both went back to work full time. And this was kind of thing that we just always loved, and so we're excited to be able to do that again. That is all to tell you we have some experience with siblings. Not only are we siblings, we're raising them, and we wrote about it. So, but we will not have all the answers today. The sibling relationship is a complex one, but we hope we make the case that it's an important one, and it calls us to be more Christ-like in many ways when it comes to whether you're an adult who have sibling relationships that continue to be difficult, or if you're raising siblings right now and your biggest prayer in the world is that they grow up to be best friends, because we all want that for our children to have each other. So with that, I am going to let Lisa introduce herself and give you a little bit idea of what we'll go over this morning.
All right, so I'm Lisa, and I am a teacher, a third grade teacher in Hopedale. And I've been attending NEC, and so it's really hard being here sometimes looking identical to the director of the youth ministry. I have signed papers for people that I don't know. I have helped people that were crying and walked away. So I've had some really strange things happen here. And in fact, we were looking for Cliff this morning, and I went to go out there, like out into the church area, and I was like, they're all gonna think I'm Heather. So I just bowed my head and walked through. The hardest part of it being the twin is that they always want to identify the one as evil and the one that's nice. How do I stand up to that? She works in a church. So
That was established long ago.
I know. We're both nice, right, Mindy? So I thought Heather's going to talk a lot about the biblical sense of relationships and how impactful they are, but I'm also going to talk about kind of the hard truth, that they're not easy. To manage all the time and to understand. So I want to talk to you a little bit. Some of the facts are going to be hard to swallow about the psychological end of being a sibling and raising siblings and the science and the research behind it. It was really quite unbelievable when we were doing our research years ago, and then kind of just going over it again, what the impact it is. So it's otherwise known as the hard truth. And then you're going to talk about the biblical, right?
Yes.
All right. So we have a big question. We're going to start with examples, but I want you to start thinking about it yourself. If you had to describe your sibling using only a place, what place would best represent them? All right, so we had some fun
So
with
we
that.
posed this question, very quickly came up answers.
Yeah.
Where would I be?
You're Hawaii.
Yep.
So that's a destination most people would like to go to or visit at some point, and I want to spend.
But wait till you hear our reasoning,
yeah,
everybody.
but also there's parts of the island you don't want to go near, So, and if you step in the wrong area, things could go a little awry. I'm not saying you do erupt sometimes, but most of the time you want to go there again and again. It's a place of contentment and happiness, and you feel, when you say, I'm going to Hawaii, most people are like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. So that's how I feel about you.
Thanks. Lisa is something a bit more local. She's Storyland. In many ways, my worst nightmare because there's crowds of people. Well, she's not my worst nightmare, but there's crowds of people. Lisa loves being around people. She is an extrovert through and through. Where I am, again, and described as an island. I'm more of an introvert. So Lisa loves being around crowds of people. She loves having plans. She loves having fun. She loves crazy rides of life and taking some risks. And mostly she just really loves being around kids. So I described her as Storyland. Plus she hates getting on planes, so it's just a quick drive. Yeah. So does anyone else care to answer this question? It's kind of has to be a creative one. Just write out what comes to mind.
Yeah, my brother John.
Yeah.
I would describe him as visiting Mumbai, specifically a garbage dump, where you'd have to clean out plastic or paper or whatever to scrap to feed your family that day. You know.
Okay.
That's my brother. He's in love with the unholy trinity, me, myself, and I.
Yep.
And it exposes itself in health issues,
Yep.
you know, because it's been chronic.
He's with me.
Oh, is it? Good.
This is my brother-in-law from Phoenix.
Oh,
Eric.
wonderful. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
She travels in the pack.
Yeah, she does.
Very important.
Lori and Pauline would say. Yeah, I say heaven right here.
Aww.
She's too humble. She's too humble, but she walks in your house and
she is right.
everything's done to a T. Like there's never a
Lots of
question.
order.
Your heart's taken care of. Your head's taken care of. Your house is taken care of. Your kids, your dog, everything.
What's your address?
I'll give you mine.
Yeah. All right.
I would, so speaking about my brother, with my younger brother, I'm Joe, by the way. I'm the working side.
A joke.
Hey, Joe.
Hello,
Hi.
Joe. Welcome to Anonymous.
I would say either the moon or Mars, like a foreign planet, because I want to go on that journey. I want to go to him and to his family and to, but when I'm there, or if I go there, I'm always walking on eggshells or not sure what's around the next corner. It's very unknown. So it's a difficult relationship, but I want to go, right? We want to explore, we want to go to the moon, we want to go. So it's a good question to ask.
Yeah.
But-
Small step, big.
But I'm not sure if I step in the wrong area, right? You could fall into a
Crater.
Yep,
Yeah.
and then never return kind of thing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we're gonna touch on that because certainly all of us feel very differently. Raising siblings, about our siblings, and that changes in time too. Sometimes it feels like Hawaii, and sometimes it's volcanic. And it's very interesting too, isn't it? Thinking about your siblings, you're all raised in the same home. You had essentially the same meals and the same kind of values surrounding you, and the same trips that you took, and yet you're so different. And there's science behind that, why you are so different. But it's a relationship that makes a huge impact. Even if you haven't seen them for a while or spent time with them, they made you who you are today. And your kids that you're raising right now are going to have a huge impact on one another as well. And it's really important to just know that, to
I think
recognize
we end
that.
there. Good luck, everybody.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Am I in the hard truth?
Yeah.
All right.
Do it.
Do you want to bring that up? Okay. So this is the hard truth, and I think we know it, but it's really important to hear it again and again. This relationship, the sibling relationship, the ones that you're raising, the ones that you're in right now, are really the longest relationship of your life, and in most ways, because we outlive our parents, right? And then we have marriages that come later on in life, but your sibling's been there from the very start. So it's a long relationship, and with that, you kind of get to know each other's quirks in and out. So little things about other people, like, well, I can really tolerate this waitress, but I can't tolerate what my brother just said, because you've been hearing it over and over again. So you have that almost that safety. It's unconditional. You've been with them for a long time, but you can say whatever you want because you'll see them next Christmas anyways, and you don't want to put up with it. So it's really interesting. Think about that, how long that lasts. By the time your children are 11, they spend 33% of their free time with siblings. So I want you to take into account, they spend time with their teachers, they spend time with their friends or at sports, but then at the end of the day, they spend that much amount of time together in the same home. And that can cause a lot of conflict, right? And because the next one is they're kind of sharing, well, this one is conflict. This is so true, okay? A conflict can occur as often as every 10 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
More or less, depending on the ages. And honestly, I think when they're younger, it's like 3.5 minutes. And if you're in a car ride, it's every 10 seconds there's a conflict.
Do you want me to
going
read
on.
this?
Yeah, go ahead.
Siblings between 3 and 7 years old engage in some kind of conflict 3.5 times an hour. Kids in the range 2 to 4 age group top out at 6.3, or more than one clash every 10 minutes. So 10 minutes is like the in-between.
Yeah, when they're younger, right?
Yeah.
And then
And
holidays.
then if they spend 10 minutes together as teenagers.
Yeah, if they actually do spend time together. And it's interesting too, and there's so much to say, and we can't get into it in just an hour, but like it goes along with just the sex of your children too. I'm raising 2 boys, and Heather's raising a son and a daughter. So at my house, you might come over, and actually you were over a couple of nights ago, and we were sitting doing some writing, and Noah and Jake were just hitting each other. Like just for fun, they walk by each other and hit each other, and then turns into something, and they're going at it behind me, and I'm continuing the conversation with Heather, and Heather's like, are you gonna like address that? I'm like, no. We're gonna talk about that a little bit later too. And then I'll go over to Heather's house, and Brooke and Kyle's helping Brooke with their homework, and they're like, oh. I wrote this book too. So it's tough. It's interesting. It's very, very interesting. There's so much.
I'll add to that gender thing. So researchers say the toughest combination are same-sex siblings. So 2 boys top out, or any number of boys top out, is the most difficult sibling relationship because of their inherent competitiveness, and they want to outdo each other. So those are boys, and 2 girls are right after that because again they're competing. Lisa's going to get into that more. They're competing, yeah. And then my poor mother had 3 girls, which she's shaking her head right now.
Yeah.
That's also extremely competitive because again, both gender to gender. The easiest, they're fine in there. The easiest, it's probably 2 boys fighting. The easiest relationship is boy and girl because inherently they know that they're different and that they don't have to
battle it out
so much. So anyway, so yes, I it's interesting going over to Lisa's house. All right, so let's take a little break and go to the Bible. Because there's so many great examples of sibling relationships in the Bible. I mean, when I was sitting here, Cliff and I were brainstorming, I'm like, oh, well, they killed each other. They hated each other. So we're going to start with the very, very first. I don't need to go through this a lot because I think we're all familiar with Cain and Abel and the story of Cain. This is the first sibling relationship of all time. Cain and Abel. And we all know that doesn't end very well. But if you think about Lisa's statistic, by the time they're 11, they're 33% of the time. There's no one else to hang out with. It's Cain and Abel. Like, that would lead to murder in most cases. So that's exactly what happens. Cain and Abel make a sacrifice to God for whatever reason. God accepts Abel's and not Cain's. And that causes Cain to be very angry and jealous. These are some of the things that we're going to talk about later with the hard truth between siblings. And he ends up killing his brother. So that didn't end well. And that's it. But I want to make today. So now we're filled with we have Jesus. We're filled with the Holy Spirit, and we've this is right after the fall. So things were really bad, and murder seemed like the best option. Cain went on to great things. He's part of our line to Jesus. But anyways, he suffered greatly after this act. So I want to make a case for conflict being a good thing now that we have Jesus and the Holy Spirit. And so I'm going to go to the next slide here. A case for conflict. So these are the 3 things that I want you to remember when it comes to either the conflict you're experiencing as adults or the conflict that you're witnessing through your children. Conflict prepares you for life. So there's been a ton of research on this, on how we become who we are. Lisa touched on it before. A couple of years ago, an article came out in Time magazine, and it was all about siblings. And it was saying that researchers very early on were looking, okay, how do we become who we are? We had the whole nature versus nurture thing. Then for a long time it was your parents shape who you are and who you become. And then they realized, wait a second, there's another group that we're not looking at, and the sibling one, and they spend their whole life together, and they're in the same environment together, and they have to work things out together, and they shape who you become, or they at least show the personality traits that you have and either enhance them or in some cases, they go against each other, making it very difficult. So, one study that they did is they studied kids in play at a young age, and then they came back a few years later. And play styles at a very young age make a big difference. But unlike relationship with friends, these siblings are forced to work it out, because at the end of the day, you could have fought like crazy over who's using the truck now and when later. But later on, you're likely returning to a shared bedroom with twin beds, and there's no way out of this. This person is in your life. You didn't get to choose it, but you've got to figure out a way to move on from it. And they're saying this is preparing you for life for later relationships, because when you become an adult, most of your relationships are peer-to-peer, whether it's your spouse, your people you work with, the school community kids are going to school with. You have adult relationships you need to figure out that you can't get out of. Like, yes, you could leave your job, yes, you know. But most cases, you are trying to continually resolve conflict. And you can do this as a result of this practice time when you were kids. So again, I go back to soul training, but researchers believe that, again, it helps with adults. And somewhere in, I'm going to read right from the article, somewhere in there is the early training for the email joke that breaks an office silence, or the husband who signals that a fight is over by asking his wife what she thinks they should do about the fast approaching vacation away. Sibling relationships are where you learn all this. They're a relationship between equals. And the final thing is picturing the future. I like what this article also says about that, is that scientists are gaining intriguing insights into the people we become as adults. Does the manager who runs a very, team approach depend on their peacemaking skills learned in the family playroom? Does the student struggling with a professor who plays favorite summon up the coping skills acquired from dealing with a sister who is daddy's girl? Do husband and wives benefit from the intergender negotiations they waged when their most important partners were their sisters and brothers? So I'm saying this to you that this is supposed to offer hope. Like, when you're kids, and Lisa's going to get on how you can survive this fighting, but there's something amazing happening. Lisa knew that because she ignored the punches and screams. She knew that something was happening and continues to happen as her two boys figure out their relationship and how to negotiate.
I mean, they weren't like, it wasn't violent punches and screams.
It felt like it to me. I was like,
So I'm gonna really get down to just the nitty gritty. I thought everybody could use a little advice. I know we're raising older children or younger children or siblings ourselves. This goes for adults as well, adult siblings. Like, give it a minute. You know that someone, if an adult sibling says something that's kind of like, oh, you're just trying to get to me, give yourself a minute. It's so hard to do, but also when the kids are fighting like that, or in the other room kind of getting into something, I try to give it a minute too. Just give it a minute. The second I walk in, I'm already emotional about it, because they're saying something mean to each other, or not sharing, or not getting along, or I've had a long day, so try to give it a minute. I liken it to, I remember when I was doing the sleep training and putting my babies in the crib and letting them cry a little bit, I used to hear their cries as, help me, help! And someone said, replace that cry with, I'm learning. So I try to do that with the fighting too. They're learning. I know they're on each other's nerves, but they're learning from each other. They're learning to negotiate. They're learning to problem solve. They're learning to end a conflict, like Heather just spoke about. So try to do that a little bit. And when you're giving yourself a minute with an adult sibling, I'm learning about them. They're trying to learn about me. So try to remind yourself of that. For the younger kids, and I know we're not dealing with a ton of younger kids here, but like describing what you see. I remember hearing about this when you were raising your toddlers, like to be a fast food, like you pull up and you're like, I want a burger, small fry, and some ketchup with it. You're repeating back what you're seeing. So you're just saying, all right, and describing exactly what you see. You're just like a reporter. All right, I see 2 children very upset right now. Voices are getting loud. And everybody looks unhappy. Not just being like, you're you again, you're doing that again, can't you guys just get along? Just go in and describe exactly what you see. And then help when necessary. I mean, this is for the younger kids too. Like the other day, last night, Jake said to Noah, Jake, Noah, you should have been at my game today. I scored so many points. And this is anyone raising teenagers? So you know this is not as awful. Noah said, you're trash. We're gonna talk about that competition between the two. That was definitely Noah saying like, you're not as good as you think, and had to bring him back down. But I helped when necessary, and I was like, no, I don't really think that's trash. Maybe you could just say, cool, great job. And you're like, cool. I thought I did a great job. on that. But it's like Jake said it just to get a backwards comment from Noah. It's their thing.
Yeah.
They were learning.
They're
learning.
They're
They're
love.
learning. They love language. Let's go back to the Bible, shall we?
Oh, no, not yet.
Yeah, there's more hot truth, okay? I still have a couple things I needed to say. This first one's really hard. Okay, so most parents have a favorite, and kids are well aware of it. That's research-based. Now, I'm gonna
say it now.
Mom, you can hold it back. So Heather and I talked a lot about this fact. I'm like, I really don't like this because I love my kids equally. I really, really do. I would give anything for either one of them, and I know most of us feel that way. But some kids are easier than others, right? I get on a road trip, and I'm not going to say his name because it's being video. I'll get on a road trip with one of them, and I'm looking forward to it. The other one, I'm like, oh, Lord, get us there quickly. Please get us there quickly. And that's the truth, and that's going to change. One of them is going to be like, I've got this kid figured out, and we're doing great, and I see where they're heading, and we're heading in the right direction, and then they flip-flop on you too. So it's not so much a favorite, it's the one that makes it's a little easier, and it's funny. The one you tend to get along with more is probably not just like you. They're probably the opposite of you. The one that you spent that is a lot like you, you're like, oh, we're clashing. So I wanted to make that evident to you that it's not a favorite thing. So Mom, you're off the hook. Now this is really interesting fact, and I want you to remember this all the time. They make a purposeful. They want to stand out. Everybody does. They want to be different. They want to be unique. And a lot of times you might find yourself with a child that's really excelling in something, the other one goes the opposite direction. It's like, why? You see how successful they are and what they're doing. Why is he or she turning away and doing something totally different? Everybody wants to be unique, even if it's a negative thing or a positive thing. So keep that in mind. They want to find their own role. And there was so much research that we did about the oldest and the middle child and the youngest child. There is real research behind that, what they're trying to do. Okay, there's facts behind them trying to find their role there. And I forget what the last one is. This will be fun. So what siblings have in common is they have the same resources. That's you. And they're fighting for it. They're fighting for the attention and the resources no matter. You think, why do they want me to just yell and go after them about something? They're getting your attention and your resources. So they will do that, whatever they have to do to get that attention. Stuff. Hard stuff, Heather. Go to the Bible.
Yeah, let's go to the Bible.
Did you want to add on to that?
No, and you and I were talking about last night, I just wanted when did we do the equal? Is that later?
That's later, and we're gonna we definitely talk about that later. How to help them not feel like they have to separate from each other and be so different.
All right, back to the Bible. Another great sibling relationship appears before us. Not very long after the first sibling relationship went bad. Isaac and Rebekah go on to have a couple of children, and they have two boys. They have Jacob and Esau. And they had favorites. Rebekah had a favorite, and her favorite was Jacob, and Isaac had a favorite, Esau. Back in those days, the firstborn son was everything. Like that, you got the family inheritance, you got the blessing, you got everything. We're all familiar with this story. Well, Rebekah schemes with her son Jacob to trick Isaac into giving him the blessing, and it works. Esau hears about this, and he is enraged. He's so angry, he threatens to kill him, and Jacob takes off. So we see, when you look in the Bible, you find extreme examples of the stuff we're talking about today, and this is one of them. This parental favoritism played out in a really ugly way. But the cool story about this particular story is that there's redemption in it. So Jacob takes off for 20 years, and then God is with him through those 20 years, and then God says it's time to go home. And Jacob, of course, is remembering his brother wanted to kill him, threatened to kill him, and if he goes home, what's going to happen? Is he going to die? But he's listening to God, and he takes the journey back, and he comes bearing, he sends people in front of him, bearing gifts. He's trying to have other people figure out, is he going to kill me? Is he going to accept me? But I want to read from here what happens when the two brothers come, get a little bit closer in physical proximity, and it's a really cool story. But as Esau gets closer, Jacob runs out in front of his family to meet him. Jacob expected Esau to attack him with violence, and he wanted to protect his family as he could, but Esau ran to meet him and embraced him, it says in Genesis, and fell on his neck and kissed him and wept. Jacob deserved Esau's anger, but Esau acted graciously towards Jacob. Instead of being angry, Esau met Jacob with joy and love and forgiveness. Jacob was so amazed that he explained, to see your face, this is the coolest part, is like seeing the face of God, now that you have received me favorably. So I am making the case to you that our siblings, we need to look at them, because guess what? Jesus loves them too, and God loves him. Our siblings, even though we struggle, some of us struggle with that. That was the most purest way that these brothers could forgive one another, by saying, to see you is like seeing the face of God. I forgive you, I extend grace, I extend forgiveness, I extend all these things that are so hard, especially when it comes to a sibling relationship, because it's one that is based on competition and jealousy and wanting to stand out from one another. And this story is a great example. There's other sibling ones. Anyone can think of anyone? We've got Joseph. Joseph had a hard time with his siblings. They sold him off to slavery in Egypt because they were jealous because the father loved him best.
He also forgave them.
And yes.
You meant evil against me.
Yes.
But God worked this for a good thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So I love the story. You know, Cain and Abel. You're like, oh gosh, let's move on. But these ones have some stories of redemption. The prodigal son, the story that Jesus tells, and the other son is like, I've been here this whole time, and he takes off, and you're going to throw a party for him. And that's a great lesson in forgiveness and grace. And then I did Martha and Mary, the sisters. You remember their little quarrel that they had? Now theirs was more dignified because they were two sisters.
Sort of.
Yeah, but they were like, you did that wrong. No, you did it wrong. And so there's lots of things, but really, people ask if Lisa and I have sibling rivalry, and yes, in our teenage years, I mean, we did fight quite a bit. Our mom did a great job in making sure that we both felt like individuals. We weren't grouped together as twins. We didn't have to always do the same stuff. She made it okay for us to find our own way, which I think really helped us in our relationship as adults, because we went off to do different careers. Like, you do not want me in a third grade classroom every day. Like, these kids would go home crying. I don't have the skill sets that Lisa has, and I very much appreciate it. And Lisa, I think appreciates, do you, Lee?
I
The floor is yours, Lee.
Well, yes. So, like, you not wanting to go to third grade class, and Heather's like, we're going to present on siblings. I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. I do a lot of things at this church that she has me do.
Yeah. But we've had adult disagreements. Kevin will remember this one. In the year we live together, you guys, we live in a house that's connected. I'm going to admit it right here on camera. Yeah. Yes, we are that weird people. But because we have a lot of respect for each other
And
boundaries, like unspoken in some cases, we've been able to coexist like that. But we're always extending grace to each other. I know I do things that annoy Lisa. I can't think of any. But we're constantly extending grace, or even dividing up what we're talking about today. I'm like, oh, I'd love to talk, but you know what? She should talk about. And we just negotiate all the time with that. So anyways, that's the point, is to say that we experienced that too. So we did have one fight that this is one I was talking about. It was about this book.
Was it?
Yeah, it was something about this book, and we screamed and screamed at each other, and we slammed each other's like
I thought it was when you forgot to
joining
pick up
doors.
Noah.
Oh, I forgot that too, sorry.
Right.
So we slammed the conjoining doors to our kitchen, and we were both hysterically crying. Kevin, unfortunately, was working from home that day, and he was trying to. And anyway, but it was very quick to forgive. We have to be quick to forgive, you guys. If the Holy Spirit is filling us up, and we depend on Christ to save us over and over again, we need to extend that to the hardest person there is to extend it to. And I make the case that sometimes is a sibling. Marriage does that too. Do you know why we get married? Because I've looked it up. Marriage is really, really hard. But it's extending unconditional love and generosity and serving one another. And I'm pointing to her, she's my second spouse. But we do that in our sibling relationship too. We can't look to the other person to change and fix things. You know, I'm thinking, Joe, you're top of mind to me, because we can talk more offline about that, but you really have to examine yourself and your own heart and what you're willing to do and sacrifice and accept, because that's all you can do. We can't change the person we marry. We try to make adjustments. Kevin's doing great. But we have to really take a look at ourselves and what we're calling ourselves to do. So, Lisa.
Totally true stuff. And it's like they are part of who what you are today because of them. You became who you are today. So even just to take a minute to recognize that. Be like, even though that's annoying or this is hard or this relationship is difficult or they're not on the path I thought they should be on, they contributed to the decisions you make even today. So it's really, when you think about it, when you get down to that, it's pretty amazing. So quickly, if you're raising young siblings, I think these are all, again, common sense, but just reminders to celebrate privately. So Jake wanted to obviously talk about his basketball game yesterday at dinner, and we said great job and talked a little bit about it, but last night when he was going to bed, I was like, man, the way you play out there, like it was just him and I talking about it. It's amazing to watch you. It is truly amazing what a gift you got from God, and I love seeing you out there. So we have those moments separately. It's important to have alone time to drive alone. Driving with both of them is so exhausting. But to go somewhere that's just with them, one-on-one, but also to have fun together. Make those family trips, those day trips. Even though they're really hard, you gotta remember, like, there's nothing better than talking about the three of us, talking about some fun family trips that we had to Hampton Beach or something. Just to have those memories to lean on are really important, so keep creating those. And equal is seldom best. I could talk about this for days. But in the classroom, I'm not going to give everybody the same thing because they don't all mean the same thing. We talk about classes all the time. Some of us need them. They're a tool. We can't read without them. It doesn't mean she needs them. It's not equal. It's not the same. We get what we need. So that's seldom best. I know that we try to do a good job of like, all right, I took them out to dinner. The other night I'm going to take the other one out to dinner. The other night. That's fine. Dividing up your time equally is totally fine. But supply to your kids what they really need from you. And being an adult sibling is...
Can I add to that, Lily?
Yeah.
So even yet the other day was Kyle's birthday, and it's not that I forgot that Brooke existed, but that was Kyle's birthday, and I focus more of my attention on him. I don't, mainly because Kyle and Brooke were just born with good personalities, but I've never made a case for like, well, since you had a friend over, you get to have a friend over.
Yeah.
That will really lead to some really hard ways of you trying to reverse that is very difficult. You give according to need. There are some times that Brooke really, really needs a lot of my attention, and I'll tell you when that gets really heavy, I feel it, and I'm like, ooh, Kyle needs. Kyle will act out in a way that I'll be like, oh, he's feeling that too. So it's just there's a book that we want to tell you about. It's Siblings Without Rivalry. That honestly, if you are raising siblings right now, there's some great adult sibling books too. This is where we got a lot of our information, but it makes sense and it's simple. It's some simple strategies you can do to help forge that relationship, no matter where you are right now. All right, Lee.
Being an adult sibling is, remember it as soul training too. But you're learning. And so you might be in a relationship that's a little volatile or not spending much time together. Give yourself some time to understand you're still learning. We're still on this earth learning about one another and learning about ourselves. And most importantly is to be Christ-like. It's as Heather said, it's kind of like this constant state of forgiveness and acceptance and grace. And on the bright, you're learning from one another all the time. Okay? And so remember that. So you're around the holiday season, you're all together all this time, and they wanted at their house, and they didn't chip in as much money as they should. Remind yourself that you're learning, they're learning, and that this relationship is really important. It made you who you are, and will continue to. What's the bright side, Heather?
I'm going to read from that article.
Yeah.
I'll read it here because I think it says it so well.
Mm-hmm.
So this is hope for adult siblings. As we age and begin to sense our own mortality, many siblings rediscover the values and strengths of family. There's a real awareness that brothers and sisters are in this together. Old rivalries are either forgotten or forgiven, and siblings concentrate instead on the feelings and the forces that can help us feel more human, less ashamed, and more connected. So I do want to, give you hope that doesn't come without work in your adult relationships, but researchers are finding that as siblings get older, regardless of what they've been through or their experiences together, they're finding there can be opportunities for reconnection if you're willing to do that. So. All right. So let's go back to the Bible, but in a good way. Well, it's always good in the Bible, but it's interesting as we were researching this, when you Google brothers and sisters in the Bible, and then these stories come up. But also, as we all know, the terms brother and sister are a very big term of endearment in the Bible. That, you know, when we, it illustrates love using brother and sisters as terms of endearment. In Romans it says, love one another with brotherly affection. And in Philippians it says, my brothers and sisters, you whom I love and long for, my joy and crown. So Christ is calling us together in sisterhood and brotherhood and siblinghood. And there's no greater way to communicate a shared equal love than by saying the words brother and sister. And so they're learning, I'm going to read one more time from this, but from the time they're born, our brothers and sisters are collaborators and co-conspirators, our role models and cautionary tales. They are scolds, protectors, goads, tormentors, playmates, counselors, sources of envy, objects of pride. They teach us how to resolve conflicts and how not to, how to conduct friendships and when to walk away from them. Sisters teach brothers about the mysteries of girls, and brothers teach sisters about the puzzles of boys. So when I think about that love, that brotherly love and sisterly love, if we're able to extend that to each other, which means, putting aside those feelings of envy and jealous and competition, there's much to be gained and appreciated from that relationship. Even if you have to dig through all that ugly stuff, like my sister always teased me when I was younger, or my brother never took me seriously because I was the younger brother. What we're trying to illustrate for you today is that all those experiences, both good and bad, can really, as adults, as we reflect back on it, we can dig through that and see some beautiful things that come from that, and hopefully speak with affection towards each other. The other points we wanted to make about a parent's job to raise children to be Christ-like. So we should look to Jesus to see what he said was important about how we behave and we treat others. You guys, this is part of the relationship series. Ours got delayed for a number of reasons. Mike Laird, go preach. Okay. And then, what was I saying, Lee?
Well, this was part of the relationship series.
Yeah, it was part of the relationship series. It got postponed at some point, and we're back here together. But if you were part of any of that relationship series, you kind of hear the same message over and over. Being in relationship is what God calls us to do. We're called to love him and love others. And he specifically said we got to love our neighbors. Well, who's in closer proximity than you? Than your sibling. The ones you grew up with, whether you don't live with them now, but they were when you were growing up, the ones you're raising right now. We need to model that as adults if we're raising young children. If we expect our kids to get along, I got to watch how I'm engaging with either these children or my spouse or my adult sibling. How am I modeling that? How am I modeling generosity and love and kindness and joy and patience? We are all called to do that in every relationship. And the harder ones that I've made a case for is the sibling one, because of all that shared history and that, maybe those resentments. But that is when we're called to be most Christ-like, and that's when we can do our most growing. So if there's a sibling relationship that's really difficult, I invite you to really pray about that and read about it and be willing to put your sibling first, even if you have, all these pent-up feelings. But if you can put your sibling first and remove the ego, remove all that negativity and approach them, that's when we're going to be most Christ-like. So as parents, we need to role model that. I taught you about what Jesus says. He intended neighbors to mean those in proximity to us, like I was just saying. There's no one closer. So love covers all wrongs in Proverbs, including the causes of sibling rivalry. The causes of sibling rivalry can be overcome by kindness, respect, and of course love. In Corinthians it says that. And parents should insist. Now this is a tough one. We can't insist that they grow up to be best friends. We cannot insist that. But we can remind them of the importance of this relationship and that it's a lifelong one. And it's one that tests us and challenges us and develops us and helps us grow. And we can, as kids get older, explain that more and more, but we also display it in our own sibling relationships, so they'll know that. So, anything else on that?
No, that was beautiful.
Well done.
Yeah. How would it change your family dynamics if you saw your siblings as a God-given gift?
Don't ask your teenager this today. No. That's not going to go over well. But if you can have this in your mind, and maybe you've been blessed with a sibling that's really easy to say. I can say Lisa and Amy are God-given gifts. I can say that easily. Do I always show it really well? Not all the time. I need to show it better. But can you look at them as a God-given gift, not only that they are loved by Jesus just as much as you are, by the way. God loves them just as much, even though they didn't make the right decision, or they married the wrong person, or they're kind of mean when you come visit their house, and whatever that case may be. They are still someone that is loved by God and needs to be loved by you, and you have an opportunity to practice all the things that God calls us to do. So today, we're hoping we're making the case for the sibling relationships are important, but they're a challenge, and you can step up to that with the Holy Spirit inside. All right, Lisa, and then we're going to finish.
Wait, is there
that.
more?
No, that's it.
You said all of that. So you did a great job.
Yeah.
That they're a challenge and a blessing. Challenge and a blessing. Parents play an important role in the young sibling's life. And there is always hope for adult sibling relationships. Always hope. Hope with work. I like how you said that.
Yeah.
And we shall pray.
We shall pray.
So what time is it right now? Well,
Yeah,
it's 8
anytime.
o'clock. It's 4:15. It's perfect.
Oh, really? That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Sweet. Guys, I want you to pick, when you were here today and thinking about siblings, whether it was your own sibling or the ones that you're raising, please just have those on your heart right now, because I would like to lift that up in prayer for you. And we just want to thank you for being here today. We do have, again, if you have a nickel
books.
or a 20, no, if you would like one of these, maybe you have grandchildren and they have young siblings. So this is activities for kids birth through elementary school. We'll even sign it. If you want it, just take it. Please take it. How's that for a sales pitch?
Yeah, that's good.
Oh, Heavenly Father, for us gathered in this room, Lord, we are brothers and sisters in this room because we are together in this church community, Lord. But we also have brothers and sisters in our lives, and perhaps we are raising some of those, Lord. And our deepest desire is that those relationships can be good ones. But Lord, we accept the fact that they are hard too, that they have inherent challenges, and that we believe that you had the perfect design when you created siblings, Lord, because it has us develop ourselves, it has us discover some hard truths about ourselves and about others, Lord. It helps us put another person first, Lord. So we pray for all of those kids being raised right now and in close proximity to their siblings, Lord, that they we ask you, Lord, that sooner rather than later they realize the gift that a sibling is, Lord. And we also ask, as parents witnessing these conflicts, that we can remember that they are learning, Lord, and that you give us the wisdom to speak into that when there are times when we don't know how to help manage that, or fear overcomes us, and thinking that maybe these kids aren't going to grow up to love each other, Lord. We trust that all to you. And we just ask for guidance and wisdom and patience in that. And Lord, as adults, we come up against a lot of hard stuff as adults, whether it's coping with a parent's aging or a parent's death, or just unresolved stuff from when we're younger. Lord, we lift that up to you, because I think that in our hearts we all have a deep desire to connect with our siblings, our friends for life, our partners in crime, and that lifelong relationship takes a lot of grace, Lord. So we ask you for that. We ask for an extra dose of that, Lord, that we can look at them and know that you love them just as much, and you love them unconditionally, and that we're working to be more like you every day in that relationship, Lord. We pray for all relationships on our hearts today, and we just bless everyone in this room, Lord. We pray this all in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.